The royal couple visited to express their friendship for the American Republic and to make the acquaintance of President Truman.
Last night's formal state dinner for the Queen was the most glittering social evening of the Ford administration.
After a night spent at Windsor Castle, the president this morning went riding with Queen Elizabeth for 40 minutes.
It was the night that a part of America's past met America's pastime. Two of the world's most enduring symbols on the same field.
There was a handshake, but no curtsy. Never mind, Mrs. Obama seems to have made another new friend.
President Trump was hosted by the Queen at Windsor Palace while rejected by protesting masses here on Trafalgar Square.
England's longest-serving monarch hosted her 13th U.S. president, Biden in his signature aviators.
Queen Elizabeth was part of a vital friendship between Great Britain and the United States. She deepened the alliance through her relationships with more than a dozen American presidents. Back with us tonight, a man who knows all about it, historian Jon Meacham, who occasionally advises President Biden on historical matters and major speeches. John, I'm so glad you could be with us tonight. Talk to us about the Queen's long friendship with this country.
Well, she was a child of the moment when the alliance between London and Washington meant everything. Her father was king when Winston Churchill was trying to woo Franklin Roosevelt and an isolationist America in the late 1930s into 1940 and almost all the way through 1941 to join the fight against Hitler. Churchill once said, "No lover ever studied the whims of his mistress as I did those of Franklin Roosevelt." And so the princess grew up around this unfolding drama where America really meant ultimate deliverance because of our strength, because of the Army, the Navy, the Army Air Force at the time, because of the women who would keep everything together here during the cataclysm of World War. And she was living it at this hour 82 years ago. The Luftwaffe launched the Blitz this month, 57 days and nights of attacks. The princesses never left London, as the Queen Mother is reported to have remarked. Someone said, "When will the princesses leave London?" And the Queen Mother said, "The princesses will not leave without me. I shall not leave without the king, and the king shall never leave London." And so there was this kind of resilient stoicism that was not legendary.
She met with many U.S. presidents. Were there some she liked more than others?
Almost certainly, because she's a human being. We will probably be about 200 years or so. You'll probably be around. I won't, before her diaries are opened. She took pains, interestingly, to meet Herbert Hoover on one of her visits to the United States. Hoover lived in the Waldorf Astoria for decades, so she even went back in time. She knew Truman, she knew Eisenhower, she knew Kennedy, did not meet Johnson. Richard Nixon had designs that perhaps his daughter Tricia might marry the Prince of Wales. So there's a breaking historical insight for you. She rode horses with President Reagan. President Bush Sr. in his diary talked about on his first meeting with her how one was uncertain how informal to be. It's an interesting comment. He dictated into a tape recorder. But then he said, "But she was so gracious, it all worked out." And so for her, the dealing with American presidents was using her role in the British Constitution. The British Constitution is divided into two segments. There's the efficient, which is the prime minister and parliament, and then there's the dignified, and that's the crown. And the crown in the service of keeping that relationship alive was always ready to meet with presidents, to go see them. And she understood her role, not least because one of her early prime ministers, Churchill was her first, but then Harold Macmillan once said of the British that we are the Greeks in the new Roman Empire. The British wanted to see themselves as the civilizing force for the bumptious Americans. And the Queen was a huge part of that strategy.
Can you tell us more, though, specifically about her relationship, let's say, with Barack Obama and George Bush, right? Two very different presidents. I mean, she met them as people, not just presidents.
Yeah, and she was fascinated by people, which is an interesting thing, given you don't think about that. But her biographers make this point that she listened, her limited contact with her subjects and with other people, imagine that dynamic. You know, it wasn't exactly let's have some gin and sit out by the pool. But she was always fascinated by people. I think President Obama would have fascinated her because of his remarkable biographical story. The best George W. Bush story is when his father was president and they had a state dinner. Barbara Bush, in her inimitable way, introduced George W. to the Queen as the black sheep of our family. And Her Majesty said, "We have several of those." So she had a wit, she had humor. There's a great scene on the Britannia, the royal yacht in 1991. She was here, and former President Reagan is on the yacht for dinner, and he is desperate to get a cup of decaf coffee, and the waiters only have regular coffee. And he's really kind of insistent that he wants his decaf. And if you watch this footage, you see Mrs. Reagan's face just absolutely anxiety-ridden that the president's asking the sovereign, the defender of the faith, for decaf coffee. And finally, Queen Elizabeth said, "Well, we do try." And that's not a bad epitaph, right? She did try.
How about just asking for a cup of tea? You're with the Queen of England. John, it is always a treat to see you, especially on a night like this, when you can share so many amazing stories. John Meacham, thank you so much.
Thanks.